Did you know the average person in the United States consumes about 3 cups of coffee per day? Problem is, landfills are receiving about 75% of those spent coffee grounds. And those coffee grounds are buried deep into landfills, and then the grounds are robbed of oxygen so they can't decompose. And what happens then, they become anaerobic and poof, they produce large amounts of methane. Methane is a greenhouse gas contributing to global warming, 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Did you know you could use those coffee grounds instead of sending it to a landfill? Put it in your compost pile. In fact, you could even make a compost pile using nothing but coffee grounds and leaves. Does that actually work? It just so happens they tested that here at the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center. We're here at a work day where the Sacramento County Master Gardeners are hard at work, and we're talking with Composter Supreme Susan Muckey, Master Gardener. And Susan, you did a little experiment back in 2022 on this.
Yes, we did. It was great. We took the tomato cages, which were pretty big tomato cages. They weren't like the little skinny ones. And then we put chicken wire around them. And we started this in November. And actually, if I were to do this again, I would probably start it as early in the fall as I could, especially as soon as I have enough leaves to fill up a tomato cage. And then the hunt begins. You can go to Starbucks or some of the other places if you don't drink coffee and just use, I would say, 50-50 ratio of coffee grounds and leaves. And what happens is by 6 months, if it rains, and if it doesn't rain, you're probably going to have to water it a little bit. But if it rains, you're going to have incredible compost, the most beautiful I have ever seen.
Let's talk about a little bit about the tomato cages you use. I think we're standing next to one of them that was probably a prime a candidate for that project. And this is made out of concrete reinforcement wire. And those sheets are usually 4x5 or thereabouts, maybe 4x6, and just formed into a circle. Sometimes they're secured by zip ties. Sometimes people will bend the prongs together to secure it. But it gets you a tomato cage 6-inch mesh that's about 5 feet tall and maybe 2.5 feet wide. So that's the size you want. And then you would wrap the outside of this with chicken wire.
Yes, because, I decided to do a beta test, and when we did it, and this is not in front of an audience, but we did it, and we poured the leaves in, and guess what happened? All the leaves fell out. So then we said, we probably need to put some chicken wire around it. And I find, too, that shredded leaves probably would work better than, the regular leaves. And if you don't have a leaf shredder, your lawnmower will work just as well.
I use my mulching mower for that, and I also use my weed whacker, and I'll stick the leaves in the fall into a metal trash can. Remember 32-gallon metal trash cans? Well, they're still around. And just take my string trimmer into that and cut them up. Yep. And it works fine. And then, in this day and age, you can save those leaves forever just about if you've got a big enough compost sack where you can just keep those leaves in until you need them.
Yeah. Yesterday, I shredded 5 bags of leaves from last year. And they were fine. The only problem is if you hadn't shred them in the fall when you collected them, it's very hard to shred them. They are like a mass of muck. And so I could just take the top layer because those shredded just fine. But the bottom ones, because I think during the year, what happens is the moisture that's in the leaves kind of goes down to the bottom, and now you've got all this moisture, even though the leaves were dry when I put them in the bag.
Massive Muck was the name of my band in high school, in case you didn't know. The secret to a successful compost pile is a 50-50 mix of what are called greens and browns. Those fallen leaves, they're browns. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around how can coffee grounds be green?
Because they're a source of nitrogen. And actually, once they've gone through the process of making coffee and brewing and whatnot, they are no longer extra acidic, because that's what people are afraid to use coffee grounds because they think they're too acidic. But once you've processed them through the coffee making process, I use instant coffee, so I don't have that problem. But anyway, yeah, that they will not be acidic.
How do you stack them when you're adding green, when you're adding brown? How big is each layer?
Okay, so what we did about a month ago, 2 months ago, is I did an interactive mini talk with my audience. And after I talked a little bit about compost and the components of compost, we went over to our trusty tomato cage, and I had each one of them dump a bucket of alternating leaves with coffee grounds.
5-gallon bucket?
Well, some of them were 5-gallon. I think the coffee ground buckets were smaller, like maybe the 3-gallon ones from Lowe's and Home Depot. And they all, one at a time, did it. And then we had somebody sitting there with the hose watering. It became their compost pile. And then we did a cheer when we finished it.
Now, of course, the secret to a successful compost pile is also air. So do you have to turn that pile?
No. That's why it's called a no-turn compost pile. And what happens is the materials you put together, they all start interacting with each other. And pretty soon, within about 6 months, you're going to have compost.
Well, probably below what you can see on top. So the compost takes up how much of the bottom of the tomato cage?
Okay. So when we did the original experiment, I kept looking at the tomato cage, and it still looked like nothing had happened, only that it had shrunk. It went to about half the size. And I said, okay, well, I'm tired of waiting. So we tipped it over, and the outside was still the leaves because we didn't turn it. But what came out of it was to die for. Even Farmer Fred would die for it.
Having a Smart Pot compost sack, I know that story well because I fill it with the shredded leaves, and you look at the top and you go, well, nothing's happening there. But then if you dump it out, all of a sudden, there's all this beautiful brown and black compost.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And I don't remember because it was several years ago, 4 years ago, but I don't remember if there was any worms in there. I can't really remember if there were. But if there were worms in there, they probably would have aided in the decomposition process.
Now, obviously, if you're using a 3-gallon bucket of coffee grounds, that's probably more than you're going to make in a week, making your 10 cups of coffee each day. So a lot of coffee shops will gladly give you a big bag or two. And that happens here at the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center. But is that just for master gardeners or anybody who shows up on an open garden day?
I think it's for anybody. And actually, what I've done is if you give one of the coffee shops a 5-gallon bucket, they'll fill it for you. You just have to
have a lid.
Yeah, it should have a lid, but or a 3-gallon if you can't carry 5 gallons. But I find they don't necessarily want to keep a lot of coffee grounds around. Now, Starbucks, I know they'll bag it up for you, but if you're really a true gardener, you don't want like just a little bag of coffee grounds. You want a manly size bag of coffee grounds. And so, so usually they'll say, oh, do you want us to put it in little bags? And I'll say, no, just give me a big bag. Can you carry it? Yes, I can carry it.
How big is the big bag?
It's a garbage bag.
Oh, okay.
It's probably a good 30 pounds.
All right. Well, you can drag it to your car.
No, I wouldn't want to drag it to my car. A trail of coffee grounds,
Well, it's in a garbage bag.
Yes, it's in a garbage bag, but as you're dragging it, and also you do not want it in your car. Coffee grounds all over your car.
How do you get it home?
I do carry it in my car, but it doesn't have a hole in the bag.
All right. Well, use 2 garbage bags.
Yes,
one inside the other.
Yes. And I do try to take it out as soon as possible because my husband always says, your car smells like a garden.
Well, that's putting it politely.
Yeah, I know. He says, between the compost and all the other stuff you put in here, he doesn't ride with me very often.
Okay, well, my car usually smells of chicken manure and things like that. But, all right, so if you're working with a converted tomato cage that is like 5 feet wide by 2.5 feet wide, if you went to get enough coffee grounds to fill up, say, half of it, it would probably be, and if it's a garbage bag full, you'd probably be about 2 or 3 of those garbage bags.
Yes, it's quite a bit. And you have to realize, too, when you put the leaves in, it kind of fills in between the spaces in the leaves. And so you're going to need more than you think, and it's better to have more than less.
All right.
You know.
So think about that. If you never started a compost pile and you don't want to have to turn it, you don't have to do much to it except maybe add water regularly.
Yes, if it doesn't rain. Yeah.
How often do you wet it?
Well, when we did it, we didn't do anything to it. When we did it in 2022, it must have rained because we didn't do anything. We didn't turn it. We didn't do anything. Since we started one about 2 months ago, what I would probably do is I would put a PVC pipe in the middle of it so that when I watered it, because we don't know how much is going to rain, when you water it, the holes in the PVC pipe would disperse the water throughout a little bit better.
What diameter pipe is this?
I would probably use, for us, we use whatever we have. We live on a farm, so we just use whatever we have. But if you have an inch, that'd probably work.
Okay, yeah, inch minimum, I would think, just to be able to stick a hose in it.
Yeah. Right. So,
okay. Well, and if you got a drill, you're set.
That's right.
How big were the holes?
I don't think it matters. I mean, when the only problem with PVC pipe is it's really hard to, especially if you get really hard PVC pipe. I would go with softer stuff that's not so hard to drill.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point because there are some like 3-inch lines you can buy.
I did a worm tower where you put a huge drainage pipe in your soil, and man, drilling those holes was terrible. It was very, very hard to do.
Now, I know somebody who did that. They had one next to a tree, and I think he drilled a hole that was about 6 feet deep and stuck a pipe in and would only water it through that perforated pipe. Yeah. It seems like that would only water one side of the tree.
Well, this was a worm tower, and the worm tower would mean you would build a worm bin basically inside of this worm tower that you submerge into your raised bed or wherever you're going to put it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So no, it's not for watering. It's for raising the cuties, the little red wigglers.
Yeah. It sounds like an African keyhole garden.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. All right. We have an article about that. I'll have a link to it in today's show notes about that article where you can learn about submerging something into your yard for the worms.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know if we still have it here, but we used to have somebody put in a 5-gallon bucket and they were just throwing all their scraps in there. And I'm not sure if we still have it or not, but we did it for several years. So anyway, it's just another way. There's always a way that suits your style of life.
Okay. Now I have a personal question. I tore out some chard that has turned rather bitter.
Okay.
That happens in May. All right. I've got the plants out of the ground. I want to feed the worms, the chard. What's the best way to chop that up? They're big leaves.
Clippers.
Oh, thank you.
Actually, my daughter, so it's bitter right now. Because what we do with the chard, with the big leaves, is we cut out the stem, and my daughter sautés it, and then she cuts all the other stuff up and puts a bunch of seasoning in it. It's delicious.
Can I have your daughter?
Yes, you can. No. She actually lives in Folsom, too.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I still think I'll feed the worms with it.
Oh, they'll enjoy it. And don't put any onions in there.
No.
Or garlic.
Yeah, it's just I'm going to have to spend an afternoon with scissors.
Yes, that's right.
All right.
Or you could put it in your freezer, and that will break it down, and then you could feed it to the worms.
Directly?
Yes.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you for that. Okay. I don't even have to cut the leaves in half?
No. Because, when you put like strawberries or something in the freezer, what happens? They turn to mush.
Yeah. Well, that's all and you've always said, every talk I've ever heard you give about vermicomposting is worms love mush.
Oh, they do. The ickier, the better. If you look in the back of your refrigerator in the bottom drawer, that slime that you've accidentally forgotten about, they would go, yum, 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 because they don't have teeth and they're going to suck it in to their body. That's the only way they can access the food that we give them.
How long should I keep the chard in the freezer?
Till it gets frozen.
Well, that's it. So like a few days?
Yes.
And it turns to mush that quick?
Of course.
Wow. All right. The stuff you learned when all you came to talk about was coffee grounds and leaves. But that's how you do it. There's an easy plan for you. And we will have this article in today's newsletter about how you can have your coffee, keep the grounds, and reduce the methane and all the problems we have with climate change, I guess. It's just basically small changes add up over time. And by adding grounds to your compost, you'll be reducing waste and protecting our environment and still have your coffee as well. Susan Muckey, Sacramento County Master Gardener, always wearing composting shirt, usually one with a worm on it.
Of course.
Of course. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.